May the 16th, 2020. Guys, you're looking at current images as of 5:14 p.m. Central. I guess that'd be 6:14 on the East Coast, guys. And we have a very well-defined center of circulation here, especially on the surface level. Now, they've put this at went from 100% chance at the 2 p.m. Update as far as development to now it's tropical depression number 1. And they're saying that very soon it will become a tropical storm. We will look at that model, and they're saying it will become continue to be a tropical storm as it comes up along the Carolina coast. Some of the models actually have it turning straight into the DC swamp. That's amazing. But I guess instead of draining it, flooding it could be maybe that would work just as well. But anyway, here's what we got, guys. You can see the circulation is very large. This would be, if it was had more time to develop, would be a very large hurricane. Look at the size of this thing. And we're going to have to watch this system that's coming off Texas. I want to scan over there just a moment before we get into this tropical details any further. Now, we're just simply going from the Caribbean satellite to the Gulf of Mexico satellite imaging, and that's what we're seeing. Now, this system is very large. It's been large for the last few days, and now it's sinking off into the warmer waters, actually approaching the Bay of Campeche. Also, look at the rotation right here in Texas, kind of pushing over towards Louisiana. Some of the models actually are showing this low pressure here dipping down and very close to New Orleans and possibly skirting into the Gulf in this area. So again, remember a couple of days ago I said it could be a very active early season, but look at the cloud layers here. Now this is coming out of Texas, and I will never forget what Lyndon Baines Johnson said. And it was like Dr. Frankenstein speaking, like a maniac when he said it. He said, if we control the satellites, we control the weather. And then in a hysterical laugh, maybe I can find it and play it at the end of this, he said, and those that control the weather control the world. And we're seeing that control of the world happen very quickly now, guys. But again, you don't know, we're dealing with two different factors. One is the weather's always crazy when you're in solar minimum. And we have the solar cycle 25 trying to crank up. We got a sunspot that's about to come around facing this planet. Very energetic sunspot. And it is from the new solar cycle. They can tell by the polarity. We just came out of solar cycle 24. Come out of the very bottom of that. And the sunspots have a polarity. Well, that changes because unlike the Earth, the sun changes its magnetic poles every 11.8 years. 11.8 years. And that matches the orbit of Jupiter and the grand solar minimum. So each time we go through the minimum and maximum, the huge gas giant in our center of our atmosphere has changed magnetic polarities. Think about that. And so as we look at it, we're dealing with that factor, and we do know, even in the 60s, that there was satellite control of the weather. And I remember looking at this early this morning. It was showing the infrared radar at night coming in before the sun rose. And guys, they were chemtrailing the hell out of Florida, and we're seeing it all across the nation. And this is the latest update, guys. It came in at 5:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which was almost an hour ago now, not quite. And they're calling it Tropical Depression number 1. Maximum sustained winds, 30 knots or 35 miles an hour. Minimum sensor pressure, 1,008 millibars. It's moving northeast at 11 knots or 13 miles per hour. And that's tracking what we've been talking about from the very beginning of this storm was the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Let's take a look at that. Now, this is a recent update. This is from the Fox Hurricane Center down in Florida. But they're saying that very quickly quickly this thing is going to become a tropical storm, which would be Arthur. And you can see Sunday 2 a.m. It is the next time stamped in here, but between now and then, the models are showing it has already happened. Then, as it goes through Sunday 2 p.m., 40-mile-per-hour winds, 45 miles per hour Monday. Guys, so Monday at 2 a.m., that's in the morning. So tomorrow night, you guys need to be ready. You understand what I'm saying? You don't want to have to deal with this at 2 a.m. in the morning. You're going to have higher storm surge pushing in, and you're going to have high winds. Probably thunderstorms, lightning. Who knows? We'll just have to see how that works out. Now, one thing I want to say is because what we're dealing with is the Gulf Stream, and that's really how the Gulf of Mexico cools itself. You have a stream of water that comes in under normal conditions and circulates and picks up a lot of heat out of the Gulf of Mexico, but then it comes out and transports it along the East Coast. And when these storms hit that heat is the energy. But they're saying by Monday at 2 p.m., you're up to 50 miles per hour. Tuesday, getting offshore a little further, it's 60 miles an hour. But just watch in case, if it gets into that Gulf Stream, like we're talking about, approaching a Cat 1 hurricane. And you guys that live on boats in the Carolinas or anywhere up the East Coast, make sure you got extra lines tied up. You got extra supplies if you're on your boat, and don't hesitate to leave it immediately. It would be, I've lost a boat last year during the hurricanes down in Pensacola, remember? That 2700 that was an old 1976 model. You saw it in many of my videos with the dolphins and things like that. But it took a beating. And so it's better to lose it than to go down with it. Most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I want to look at the spaghetti models also. And what you're seeing, and it's kind of shifted throughout the day, you've got your Canadian model still carrying the center between the Outer Banks and Nags Head area and the East Coast line. And then you've got 3 models that turn this into either New York or across Washington. You got 1 into New York and these 2 into D.C. So, and again, they put different parameters into the models, different wind speeds, higher, low pressure, all of that. And that's where they come up with these models. But just don't let your guard down, and it's better, like we say, when you're just flooding, turn around, don't drown. Well, don't swim in the rip currents. Don't go down with the boat. Take extra precaution. If you're in a sheltered area, many of my friends in Florida, especially the guys that have the charter boats that many of you that travel in that area have probably ridden on, they will take these things upriver or behind the island there, off Pensacola there at the Cove, and ride these things out. But they don't leave it tied up to the pier to get beat to death. You destroy the pier and your boat and other boats. So just be aware of that. There's no use in trying to get into the water right now. Sure, you want to surf, I understand, but you want to wake up the next day too, guys. Now, I want to show you some images of our sun from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Now, these are images from yesterday up until today as I was recording them. Top left corner right here, guys. It's one of the first sunspots that we've seen. It's like a record year of 0 sunspots, but is what happens when you get to the bottom trough of a solar minimum. Now, when you got solar minimums and solar maximums, and solar cycles. Solar cycles are 11.8 years, again, matches the orbit of Jupiter, the 2 really gas giants of our solar system. There we have a binary system. A lot of people won't say that, but we do. Most solar systems are binary, by the way. But in the top left here, we've got a sunspot coming around. That could be interesting because space weather is the Earth's weather, and that's why we watch it, guys. Top left again on these images, new sunspot for solar cycle 25. Now, as we say that, again, I said you have solar minimums and maximums. then you have the grand solar minimums. And what happens is when you're going into a grand solar minimum, the peak of each of the solar cycles, which is roughly 12 years, 11.8 years, they will be weaker as it rises back up. And you'll have a little longer winter, a little more chaotic weather like we're seeing now. But I just wanted to point that out. We have the first sunspot that looks sizable for this new solar cycle. And that always is very interesting when this thing starts acting up. It's called our sun. It has everything to do with every drop of rain, every bit of wind that you feel, all comes from this ball. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.
And that message calls for new frontiers, new vision. It calls for us taking the steps now that will make us no longer second in space and in science. It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather. And he who controls the weather will control the world.